Hi, Outfest. Thank you for watching Cowboys on our Outfest.org digital festival for 2020. Hopefully you've watched it, and so there'll be no spoilers in this Q&A, but I'm here with director Anna Kerrigan and the cast of Cowboys. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, we're from multiple places in the US. I believe Steve is joining us from a hilltop in Minnesota. And the rest of us are in Los Angeles. But thank you so much for being here. It's a absolutely fantastic movie, and I know these are strange times for film festivals, and probably not one of the premieres you envisioned when you were making this film, Anna. But I do want to go back to the beginning of when you started conceiving of this film, and if you could talk a little bit about what your inspiration was for the story and what kind of themes you were looking to explore as you started crafting it.
Yeah, of course, and apologies in advance from my dog, Donna. So as a kid, I would go to Montana, northwestern Montana, where we actually set and filmed the movie. It's Flathead Valley with my best friend and her family, and this particular part of Montana had this very sort of it was my escape from Los Angeles and from my life, and it had a very special place in my heart. And I've always loved it. And as I started to become a teenager and get older, all of these locals that I knew and loved, I started realizing that some of them had very different politics than I did. And I had this sort of internal conflict about the place. Whereas, I really loved going there. I really loved the people there. And then there was this huge political contrast between the people I hung out with in LA and later in New York, where I moved after college, and the people that I knew in Montana. So I started to write Cowboys, wanting to write something in that place. I actually didn't set out with any themes in mind. I literally started with a father and son on horseback, and I knew they were running away from something. And that was the beginning of the movie. And it was, while I was writing it, I really, really overwrote it. And, I was sort of asking myself the questions of what are these people running from? What are they running to? And it just very, very gradually developed into this film.
And the story becomes such a beautiful journey between this father and son. And in conceiving of Joe and casting that role with Sasha, I'm just wondering what that search was like, especially when the character eventually became a child of trans experience. What is it like pursuing an actor of trans experience of that age, and how did you find Sasha and know he was right for the role?
Well, we were so lucky to find Sasha. And I worked with this amazing casting director, Edie Velasco. It was really important to me to find someone who actually was transgender or non-binary. And obviously there are additional, things to consider when casting a kid. We talked to GLAAD, Edie and I talked to Nick Adams there, who does the transgender media relations. He guided us through the process of, outreach to everyone from PFLAG to regional organizations and summer camps. I mean, we did a total blast across the United States looking for Sasha. And in addition to the more traditional breakdown, avenues. And I ended up, talking to a number of kids across the country and their parents over Zoom, which at the time seemed incredibly annoying. Now it just seems like what everyone will be doing forever. But I was lucky enough that, Sasha was based in the LA area. So Sasha came to Edie's offices. I had watched a few of his self-tapes, and we were able to work together. And it was just very clear pretty quickly working with Sasha that he was the right guy for the role.
It's a wonderful, and Sasha
is super talented, and and also Jillian and Steve were already cast, and it was, it felt like total kismet that Sasha existed and just organically fit into this family.
I couldn't believe when you sent a picture 2 days into shooting to me of Sasha and Steve together, and I was like, that equally looks like Steve's kid and my kid. Right. Sasha is perfect for this part. I was so excited to get to work with them.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Sasha, so this is your first film role, right? Ever. Which is a
Yeah.
pretty amazing performance for the first time out. I'm just wondering, was the experience different than you had thought it would be when you were going into it?
Well, I had a slight expectation, really. I knew it was going to be amazing, but honestly, it was better than amazing. It was phenomenal, and I'm so happy I got to work with all of you amazing people.
And
You're the lucky one. So sweet.
did you, when you first read the story, did you feel a connection to Joe and feel like there were things from your own life that you could bring to this role?
Yes, because I lived in a small mountain town in Colorado for like Montana. It was very like a small town with like 10,000 people, so I felt connected to that. Definitely a lot.
Excellent. And I wanted to ask Jillian and Steve, and Steve, we can start with you. What is the process like working with an actor of Sasha's age who's kind of a newcomer to this? Is it a different process from working with actors who have been at it a while and are very trained? What did that experience help your performance at all?
Yeah, well, yeah. First off, Sash, awesome coat. Actually, I love it. Look at me, I'm in a t-shirt. That's ridiculous. You look great. All right. Yeah, no, well, here's the thing. I really think that any movie you do, no matter who you're acting with, it's a challenge, and it's always there's this process of getting to know how somebody works, you know. And the great thing about our job is that, you know, Sasha is my peer, right? And there's something about kids that's great, in that there's maybe not as many roadblocks and habits that older actors have, and they tend to listen more and react in real time. And you know, and how we were going to shoot it, and making sure that we were open to things just happening, you know, and that was the atmosphere we shoot in, and Sasha and I got really tight, and I really felt naturally developed our own way of working, which was remarkable. And I've had a lot of experience with kids. I mean, I've done a lot of movies with kids, and sometimes it's a hassle and sometimes it's not. And I've done a lot of movies with older people, and sometimes that's a hassle and sometimes it's not. It depends on.
That's what I loved about this movie too, is I came into the shooting process later. You guys were already shooting, and so you guys kind of set up this thing where ahead of time we were kind of rehearsing in the hotel just to kind of get to know each other, just to experience what it's like to go from Steve and Sasha and Jillian to Sally, Troy, and Joe. And I really love that, because I'm actually terrified of rehearsals. I don't love them. I feel like sometimes it makes you feel a little stale, or that you're coming into it knowing exactly every move you're going to do. But this felt different. This felt like it was bonding time for us, and we really got to play. And it was so cool working with Sasha, because kind of like what Steve was saying, their instincts are so strong and different than what you would expect. So sometimes you're like, oh, you kind of see that line as a funny line. That's interesting to me. I wouldn't have naturally gone there, because you read it a certain way as an adult and as someone who's done this for years and years. No, not that many, but some more years than Sasha. And it was so cool to see what he naturally brought to the role and to that family, to our family.
Jillian, was this your first time playing a parent? I'm wondering, and if that was something that attracted you to the role. I was
played a parent like one time on Eastbound and Down, but barely had any scenes with kids. This was so different. Is being a parent in this way. I'd never done anything like this before.
To pay a compliment forward, I was watching this with a colleague, and the scene of you in the store where Joe's trying to get you to buy toys for him, my colleague was like, that was such a great mom look she just gave him. Like, it was like,
that's the look my mom would give me for anything I asked for. So,
but I did want to ask you, Jillian, about, like, like I've seen the movie twice now, and when you read kind of the synopsis and you go in knowing what it's about, it's easy to kind of label your character as the antagonist. But then, especially the second time I watched it, it was such a beautiful performance, the way you kind of balanced like her misguidedness with the struggles that she's actually going through. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about getting into that headspace.
It was difficult. It was actually harder than I imagined coming onto the project. I read Anna's script. I thought it was so beautiful. I found out that Steve was involved, and I was like, I want to play this character. It's so different than anything I'd ever played. And honestly, it's the most different character that I've played. It's sort of thought there would be a little bit of a struggle, but it was really hard. I felt like I was on the daily nauseous. I'm like, do we eat something bad for breakfast? I don't know why I feel constantly horrible, but it is because she's so different from me, and I had to kind of find a connection to her and figure out how she's flawed, but how she could not be the villain so much, because you can read it that way and you could definitely play it that way. But I think how she's just human and uneducated or unaware of life and life struggles.
Yeah, and it's an interesting counterbalance to Steve's character. And Anna and Steve, I kind of want to ask you both about the conception of this character. I mean, the title is Cowboys, and kind of the vision of masculinity that kind of Joe wants to emulate at times, and that Steve kind of represents is of, you know, going to the bar with your friends and drinking and shooting guns, and that cowboy inflected imagery. But Steve also has this unexpected sensitivity to Joe's struggle. And I just wondered if you could both talk about, especially in the Montana like setting that you placed this movie, and how you came about that character.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was important to me, and Steve can also speak about this from like personal experience as someone who like lives in Kentucky. It always bugs me that there's this sort of monolithic view of like the way people are, you know, especially if you're in a blue state, the way people are in a red state. And I just don't think people are as simple as we portray them a lot of times. And for Steve's character, for Troy, he's someone who just loves his kid first and foremost, and he's going to accept his child. You know, when I was sort of posing the question to myself earlier today, like, would Troy vote for Trump? Like, I don't think he voted, you know, but maybe he did. But yeah, for me, Steve was such a incredible actor and choice for the role, and I was so excited when he came on because, you know, he's so loving, and he's so funny, and he's just, you know, he can convincingly play that country guy, but he brings such like a wonderful level of sensitivity and thoughtfulness to it.
I mean, beauty of the script was these. It's one of the best scripts I ever read. I was floored by it, and just the simple story of flawed people, you know, doing the best they can. And it's very simple, but it's hard to do. It's hard to write. It's hard to, and red state, blue state, I don't care who you vote for, there's this connection to your kid and this unconditional love, and that rang true in it. I mean, it was an amazing family story, father-son journey story to me, and it rang true. And Troy, with all his problems, is this ignorant guy, maybe not well educated, but, you know, cares about his family.
Yeah, and you mentioned Troy's troubles, and one of the things you kind of beautifully do is portray his struggles with mental health. And I'm just wondering what your preparation is for kind of portraying that with authenticity and sensitivity.
Yeah, that's tough because, you know, bipolar is just across the board different with so many different people. And Anna and I talked about this a lot, and really wanted him to be this. When he's manic, in if you're in the same kind of like, hey, I want to go out, he's the greatest guy in the world. But when he's manic and you're not really into that whatever mode that he's in, he can be troubling. And we didn't want it to get in the way or be too big of a kind of the levels were all over the place depending on where we were in the story, and we kind of winged it in a way. I mean, and I think it worked.
Absolutely. And I mean, Sasha, I want to ask you, because we've talked a lot about Steve and Jillian's process. Did you, in this first role, learn things from them that you're going to steal and kind of take to your next roles?
Of course. Of course. Yes, definitely. I learned so much from them, and I'm so grateful that I did, because I can bring it to all of my roles, and I can be as phenomenal actors as they are.
You're the best. It's so good to see your face. I'm so happy.
I know. So
I don't know where Sasha is on your screen, but he's at the bottom of mine, and I keep feeling like we're in this like conference meeting.
He's about
Sasha at the head of the table as the CEO of the Soup Call.
He's about to pound his fist. Unacceptable.
Exactly.
I'm trying to find where I can see everybody at the same time.
If you go to it's speaker. No, wait, sorry. It's gallery view.
Yeah, I know. I'm on my phone, so it's on a
maybe
different.
You can't do it.
You just swipe.
Swipe?
Yeah.
I think that's a thing. As he like leaves.
Oh, it worked! Yeah, you guys are geniuses. Oh, that's better. I would. Yeah. Okay, this is good.
That's the most productive thing I've done all day, was help you.
It's the small things.
There's one more, since she couldn't join us for this, Anna, there's one more performance in this film that I wanted to hit on, just because Ann Dowd is such a beloved actress by all, I think, or should be if they don't know her. But I loved the conception of her character, a very calming presence, especially in the job she has to do. And I'm wondering, did you tailor the role to her? What did she bring to it?
I did tailor the role to her a little bit. I tailored the role, I think, to everyone a little bit. I'm trying to remember. Like, generally, I would cast and then sort of do a sweep through the script. And then I, call every actor individually, and then we have a conversation. And, I try to make sure that before we go into the shoot, we all feel good about where it is. Yeah, Anne, I was so excited to get her on board. She's also just like a queen of the human race. I think she's just the most fantastic person. Yeah, I mean, she's exactly how I imagined and wanted the role to be, this calm, super practical force in this field of a mostly male dominated profession, who's connecting to this mother who, at first is a little difficult to connect with, but ultimately she sort of falls in love with the family and wants to bring them back together again, not to ruin anything.
Well, I wanted to ask, we're running out of time here, but to finish and maybe open this to everybody, but Anna, maybe you could speak to it first. I mean, obviously this film is coming out at a strange time for distribution and for independent film especially. And thank you again for allowing Outfest to share it with our audience. I'm just wondering, what is the path forward for it, and how can we help? Like, what is the outlook?
Yeah, well, we actually, and so like we're, it's been a weird process, certainly, of the, dealing with the market. And I think that, I mean, I don't know. I still feel, first of all, I mean, playing Outfest, I had another project with you guys and I had such a great experience, and I've worked and mentored with, I've mentored young filmmakers in your Outset program. So like, I love Outfest, and I was really excited and it just feels right for us to be bringing it to you guys. And also we get to see it in a drive-in, which is like insane. Yeah. And one of the weird silver linings of COVID, where you're like, I never would have imagined a year ago that I would see a film of mine in a drive-in, I don't know. It does bum me out generally about theatrical, like who knows, but I believe in some weird way that there will be silver linings to our film coming out in the near-ish future. I just don't quite know what they are. I mean, we have a lot of people at home available to watch our film. So yeah, we'll see.
And maybe to everyone else, I can just ask, now that the film is done, what do you hope those who watch it at home or however they get to watch it at a drive-in are going to take away from this film? Jillian, we'll start with you because you're first in my setup.
I'm first up in the box, in the row.
Oh, thank God. Oh, good Lord. Good. Well, I want to hear. What do you want to hear?
I know. Questions like these always kind of freak me out.
I know.
Hate that question.
Please be as philosophical and moving as possible.
You have no idea what everyone's going to take away from it, but I think Steve's right. It's essentially a family film. Like it's different, but it's struggles we all have, and I think that people will relate to it, and I think that people will see how. You're right, Anna, like how you were talking about how someone in Montana would deal with these issues may be different than Los Angeles. And I think it's good to have movies that say something nowadays, and they say something from the point of view that we don't always hear from. Follow that.
Oh,
I know, follow that.
Perfect. We all agree.
That was amazing.
What she said? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I'm attracted to things that I associate with, that are like me, that are like my neighbors. You know, these are stories about real people. I mean, you don't get to see movies like that much anymore. I mean, you do, but we're inundated with fantasy, and I just love things that are grounded in reality, and I hope that they adhere to it on that level.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. I was sort of hoping, Steve, that you would. Steve did this, like, he won best actor at Tribeca, and he sent his, like, I don't even know what they did with it. I don't know if they ever played those videos.
I have no idea.
They never made this statue.
Steve did this, like, acceptance video. We had to do, like, acceptance videos, and Steve's video was, like, him in his backyard, and, like, a goat came in and started eating his shirt. And I was like, that is Steve. I mean, this is why Steve is amazing. And, like, so I was a little disappointed that you're calling from your car and there's not a goat eating you. But I was, like, hoping there was some livestock in there.
There's gotta be a goat nearby. Come on.
I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking at a pig farm right now. Two people came by and slowed down like they needed help. If I told them what I was doing, they would say, what? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, that is really crazy.
It's insane. Oh, these are crazy times. Woo.
Sasha, maybe I'll change that last question up for you a little bit to close off. Since this is your first film, what are you hoping for your career as an actor going forward? What kind of roles do you want to play? What do you see for yourself in the future?
Definitely a Marvel character.
Ooh.
I like those. That's fun.
Have either of you played a Marvel character yet, Steve or Jillian? I don't.
No.
It's such a long title.
Every day.
We're all Marvel characters now, guys.
Our
own heroes.
In a movie, I definitely go see. Jillian and I should be Marvel characters. Just
you should be.
We're pitching it right now to the world.
Yep.
Dude, I'm telling you, it would be amazing. It would be so absurd.
If Cowboys all.
That's playing it straight.
Yeah. But thank you all so much for joining us on this talk. This was an absolute delight. And thank you to the Outfest audience for watching Cowboys. And
yes, thank you.
Yay, guys.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. It's great to see everybody.
Goodbye, Wade.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.